Englishmen are about to face 30,000 of Europe's finest knights. The French have every advantage: superior numbers, heavy cavalry, the flower of European nobility. They're so confident that nobles argue over who gets to kill the English king. 4 hours later, 1,500 French nobles are dead. The English lost 40 men. The age of the armored knight, 500 years of dominance, ended in a single afternoon. The blind king of Bohemia charged into death rather than miss the slaughter. French knights trampled their own allies trying to flee. The Genoese crossbowmen were massacred by the very nobles who hired them. For weeks afterward, crows grew so fat on noble flesh they could barely fly. This was Crécy, where medieval warfare died in the mud. Edward III had landed in Normandy with 15,000 men, claiming the French throne. He burned his way across northern France in what was called a chevauchée, licensed destruction. Philip VI assembled the largest army in Christendom, 30,000 strong. These were not just soldiers. Every important noble in France was there. The French knights were the tanks of medieval warfare, a ton of man and horse. For 500 years, heavy cavalry charges had decided every battle. But Edward III had something the French didn't respect: 5,000 English longbowmen. Peasants and criminals, trained since childhood to shoot 12 arrows a minute. Edward positioned his army on a hill, forcing the French to attack uphill. He made his knights dismount and fight on foot, an insult to centuries of pride. The night before battle, the English camp was eerily calm: meat, ale, and preparation. Meanwhile, on the French side, chaos disguised as pageantry. When dawn broke, they saw the smoking ruins of Edward's trail. Vengeance demanded. By mid-afternoon, dark clouds gathered. A sudden storm soaked the field. The English unstrung their bows, keeping them dry under helmets and cloaks. The Genoese crossbowmen were not so wise. Their strings stretched and sagged. When the French king ordered a halt, his nobles charged anyway. The French army was no longer an army. It was a mob of impatient aristocrats. First came the Genoese crossbowmen, the best mercenaries money could buy. But their shields were left behind, and their doom was sealed. The Genoese fired their first volley. Most of their bolts fell short. Then the English answered. 5,000 longbows thundered at once. The sky turned black with arrows, the sound like a storm breaking. The Genoese broke ranks and ran for their lives. The French knights saw them retreat and shouted, "Kill this rabble that blocks our way." They trampled their own mercenaries into the dirt to clear a path. The Genoese were slaughtered between English arrows and French swords. Then came the French main assault, 12,000 mounted knights, charging uphill through mud, over bodies, into the teeth of English arrows. At long range, arrows didn't pierce armor, they pierced horses. Fallen horses became obstacles, halting the charge before it reached the enemy. At close range, arrows punched through visors, armpits, and thighs. The impact was like being struck by hammers inside their armor. The charge lost all momentum. Knights slipped, horses screamed. Arrows fell like snow. The French couldn't even see the enemy. The hidden ditches and sharpened stakes tore through charging horses. The rain turned the ground into a pit of death. Knights drowned in armor. When archers ran out of arrows, they pulled them from the dead to fire again. The French were being killed by their own arrows, recycled by English hands. Then the blind King John of Bohemia rode into legend. He ordered his men to tie their horses to his, so he could die fighting. He charged blind into the English lines, swinging at sound and shadow. He was found, still tied to his knights, sword in hand, eyes open. The Black Prince was so moved he took the king's emblem, the ostrich feathers. As the sun set, the French had charged 16 times into the same death. Each charge more desperate than the last, glory drowned in mud. The French king himself rode forward. An arrow pierced his jaw. His guards dragged him away as he tried to return to the slaughter. The sacred battle banner of France, the oriflamme, was abandoned in the mud. As night fell, English archers finished the wounded with knives and hammers. They had run out of arrows long ago and were now using stakes and mallets. English peasants beat French nobles to death with sticks in the dark. When dawn came, the field was silent. A kingdom's nobility lay in the mud. The Count of Flanders, the Duke of Lorraine, the Count of Blois, all dead. 1,500 nobles killed, 11 princes, thousands of knights. The English lost only 40 men, including just 2 knights. 1 English knight for every 750 French nobles. The disparity was so extreme, chroniclers thought it divine intervention. But the truth was simpler. Discipline and preparation defeated pride. The longbow had made heavy cavalry obsolete in a single afternoon. Yet the most devastating wound wasn't physical, it was psychological. For centuries, noble blood was believed to guarantee victory. Crécy proved a Welsh peasant could kill a prince with a stick and string. The entire social order of medieval Europe cracked that day. There weren't enough nobles left to bury the dead. Bodies lay unburied for days, feeding wolves and carrion birds. Local peasants looted the dead, finding wealth beyond imagination. The armor that failed to save its owners was melted down and sold. The English marched onward to Calais, leaving a field of ghosts behind. Locals called it the Field of the Cloth of Gold for all the finery on the dead. For years, farmers plowing there would uncover noble bones and rusted steel. The shock to France was indescribable, entire families wiped out in hours. Administrative chaos followed. Whole regions lost their rulers overnight. The French military had to rebuild from ashes. They began hiring their own archers and learning from their defeat. But pride dies slowly, and humiliation dies even slower. The Battle of Crécy had ended the romance of knighthood forever. From that day, war would be ruled by firepower, not courage. Yet the lesson was ignored. 10 years later, France made the same mistake. They charged English archers on a hill and lost another king. It took France nearly a century to learn that courage alone could not win wars. Common archers had shattered the illusion of divine nobility. If peasants could kill princes, what was left of the divine right to rule? Crécy didn't just destroy an army. It destroyed a belief system. The longbow became the most feared weapon in Europe. But even the longbow's reign was short. Gunpowder turned every peasant into a soldier. The weapon that killed chivalry was itself killed by progress. Yet one act from Crécy still echoed, the blind king's final charge. His death became legend, the last pure act of chivalry. He chose certain death over retreat, proving that honor still meant something. For centuries, poets would sing of his blindness and bravery. Even his enemy, the Black Prince, wore his feathers in honor. Modern historians study Crécy as a turning point in warfare. It proved discipline and preparation beat courage and pride. It showed that technology would always reshape honor. Every modern military principle was born in that muddy field. Discipline, positioning, firepower, all discovered through blood. Even today, Crécy stands as the moment courage met mathematics. The proud nobility of France trampled their own allies to die gloriously. The Count d'Alençon, who ordered the massacre, was shot through the face moments later. The French killed more of their own men than the English did. The crows that feasted grew too fat to fly. They hopped from corpse to corpse, too heavy for their own wings. It was the perfect metaphor. Even the scavengers were overwhelmed. Today, a small monument marks the field of Crécy. Tour buses rarely stop. Most people have never heard of it. But on August 26, 1346, the medieval world ended here. 500 years of tradition, honor, and arrogance, gone in an afternoon. The English didn't just win a battle, they buried an age. They proved that courage could not defeat precision, that bravery could not stop arrows, and that nobility could not protect a man from mathematics. The French lost more than soldiers that day. They lost their entire understanding of how the world worked. The idea that bloodline equals superiority died at Crécy. It was not divine right that ruled the field. It was skill. For 5,000 peasants, the bow was more powerful than a crown. The longbow made every man equal before death. And in that equality, chivalry was buried. The Battle of Crécy marked the death of an illusion. War was no longer about glory, but survival. No songs would celebrate the slaughter in the rain. No poem could turn this mud into honor. Honor itself drowned here, along with the knights who worshipped it. From this mud, a new kind of war would rise, where men fought not for glory, but for efficiency. The romantic knight became a relic, a myth of a simpler age. Crécy was not just a battle. It was humanity's awakening. An awakening that knowledge, not blood, shapes power. Empires would rise and fall by this lesson for centuries. Every army that followed studied what happened at Crécy. Every strategist learned that arrogance loses wars. And every soldier learned that victory is built before battle. The Battle of Crécy remains a whisper, where mud silenced gold, where peasants rewrote the story of war, where courage met consequence, and the world learned that strength without wisdom is suicide. Crécy was not the end of chivalry. It was its judgment. And on that muddy slope under the rain, the age of the knight ended forever.